Hi everyone, I'm Brian James. Today we're going to be talking about Visualforce Components, quick and dirty, and you're watching System.Debug. So the first thing I want to talk about real quick is what a component is. A component is a modular set of code that we can reuse over and over and over again in different Visualforce pages without having to copy and paste that code. We can send it a couple of attributes, it can have its own controller, and that way we're keeping small bits of code modular. All right, so let's just jump right in. Let's get started. The first thing that we're going to look at here is our component, okay? And my component is Tom's component. So real quick, as a great example of how a component works, is we're just going to throw some code into it. Hello Tom from system.debug. We'll save that. Then we're going to go over to our page here and launch that real quick. All you're going to do to launch your component is type C for component, colon, and then the name of the component here. They're self-enclosing, and you can also pass it attributes and other sets of data, but for this first example, we're just going to do a really easy one here. So we'll save that, and we're going to go over here to Tom's page and launch it and see what it looks like. Hello Tom from system.debug. Alright, see, so all we've done is access our component here. Our component just consists of a single H1 tag that says hello Tom from system.debug. Can we make this even more modular? Even more interactive even? Absolutely. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to add an Apex attribute. And you've probably seen this in a lot of Apex elements when you're passing it different attributes such as the values or the vars. If you think about all of your Apex page block tables being, in a sense, standard components, I think it's easier to kind of wrap your head around it. We're just going to make our own custom component that works similarly to those. In this case, we're not going to use a list or anything like that. I don't want to get too complicated with it. So we're just going to do our first attribute, and only attribute really, as a string. You can have lots of different attributes, but we're just going to keep this super simple, and we'll call it Tom's string. Oh, well, first off, it's a string. The name of it is the attribute name that we're going to use in our Visualforce page to populate this attribute, so that we can now go ahead and then reuse it in our component. So we'll call this Tom string. And really the only other have to have when it comes to an attribute is a description. And I like to write really, really good descriptions, as you can see. And to access that attribute, all we need to do is write a simple expression here that grabs it. And we'll save that. Now we actually, anything that pops up here is going to show up here. So if we go over to our Apex page, or Visualforce page rather, we're going to add this attribute in. So Tom's string equals, and we're going to pass it anything. We'll just say Tom is. Now if we go over here and we refresh this, it's just going to say Tom is, because we're passing that from our Visualforce page into our component. Okay, so we can move on to the next step now, which is adding a controller to our component, and this way we've kept an Apex class separate from it so that we can use it along with our component anytime we're accessing this component. And to do this, we're just going to keep this really, really simple. We're not going to go overcomplicate this. We're going to say public string Tom's var equals get set. I'm not worried about best practice at this point. And then we're going to launch our controller by giving it a constructor method. So public Tom's controller. I should say we're going to populate our variable by using a constructor method. And we're going to say Tom's var equals single quotes because it's Apex. So freaking awesome. All right. So we're going to save that. public string Tom's var does not equal. That's my bad. All right, so now when we go out to our component, we can actually add right to this and say access that variable, just like you would any other typical variable in a Apex controller. So we'll say Tom's var. All right, save that. And now when we go back and relaunch this in Visualforce page, you'll see Tom is so freaking awesome. All right, so that's just a really, really quick and dirty example of how components can interface with Visualforce pages, how they can have their own controllers, and you can just constantly reuse this code over and over and over again and build off of it. You can pass any sorts of data types into Apex from it. And from your Visualforce pages down into these components. You can actually embed components inside components. You can have multiple components on a Visualforce page. A lot of companies do this. A lot of ISVs are using these. It's really, really exciting. I'll post a link below to the documentation for Visualforce Components. I highly recommend taking a look at them. It's definitely going to help you if you're a consultant who is writing the same code over and over again. And this will allow you to kind of minimize it, and by dropping these components into different orgs or dropping these components onto different pages, you're just going to create a better experience for not only you and future programmers, but for your users as well. This has been Brian James, quick and dirty overview of Visualforce Components. I want to thank anybody who is watching and anybody who's subscribed to our channel. You have all been super fantastic, and I can't wait to keep producing more and more of these videos. Have a great day. Thanks again.